Hello and welcome to 365 Brothers, the podcast. I'm your host, Rahbin Shyne. You can find all of our previous 100 episodes wherever you get your podcast. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Today we're speaking with Mr. Adam Lee Spencer. He's a sports agent and sports business consultant. Is there anything you'd like to share with the listeners that they might not otherwise hear in the interviews?
Well, I have a favorite rumored story.
I'm all ears.
So I have 20 years of military service. And there's a story that goes back to the beginnings of the Women's Army Corps. So this is 1942, 43-ish time. And it's reached a period where Black women are now allowed to enlist in the Women's Army Corps. So these are the women you'll hear about in the movie that Tyler Perry is putting together now. And I believe it's connected to the Double B campaign. So the story goes, as they enlisted, signed the documents, did the fingerprints, all that great stuff, those women held up two fingers. One was for the battle abroad, the other was for the battle at home. And I saw it in a documentary in 2018 or 2019, and it has stayed with me. This being 1942, 1943-ish, and Black women and really Black soldiers acknowledging these two different battles.
Mm-hmm.
The obvious one as a country we're fighting, while also maintaining that there's a battle at home for voting rights, the right to walk and exist in a free manner in this country. And so that has stayed with me.
What
I've
is it
always-
about it for you? Because I get the symbolism of it, the reality of it, that African-American troops who fought came back and were still having to fight. They served their country and then came back and it was still Jim Crow. What is it about this story, specifically the women? What is it about that touches you today?
Well, first and foremost, when we have had conversations about Black veterans and the experience of Black veterans, it's generally anything else. I don't care the race, ethnicity, or skin color. It's generally been centered around the men. I had never heard a story about how Black women had entered the Women's Army Corps. So that always stayed with me. Personally, it was my friendships and conversations with Black women that got me through a whole lot of hard time within my military experience. That was the place I was able to share whatever it is I'm dealing with. It was, those friendships that I had with them. If I'm very honest, that's where I was able to share.
Yeah.
Looking back on my military career. Brothers was cool. We laughed, joked, we hung out, we ran, we did it all together. But I don't know, looking back on it, I don't know if I really shared.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it is that juxtaposition you spoke about of those two realities coming together.
So what was it about the listening of the Black women in the military that contributed to you and made it a more doable situation?
I don't get into my social life much, but I don't care how good you look. I don't care how much you're attracted to me or how much I'm attracted to you. If I find trust in you and trust on a friendship level with you, I'm not crossing that barrier.
Mhm.
Forget it. And I don't know, maybe this is selfish. I don't know. But I felt like I needed whatever conversations we were having or however we were hanging out, just laughing and joking more than I needed to, us
I
doing whatever.
I totally get what you're saying.
And that is something I carry it to this day. If we are in a place where I get to know you and I trust you that much to share with you or to text with you or whatever the case is, hey, look, it ain't it today. If I'm able to do that and we haven't already crossed that barrier, whatever that looks like, nah, we not crossing it. Because now it may sound crazy, but now it's ultimate trust.
Okay, but hold on. Okay, so we got a whole set of questions. We ain't even got to them yet, but
Oh, Jesus.
I listen, I hear this and I go, okay, but wait. So what about those that you are romantically involved with? Is that trust that you're talking about? Do you then build it after? Do you let it get that far? Do you give them that same trust?
I'm single at about to be 48. So the answer pretty much there. No biological kids. So the answer's like I said, I don't delve in my personal life much, but oh
Yeah. You've answered it, by the way. Yep.
yeah, oh jeez. Oh Lord. No.
And I know this conversation catches you off guard. And I'm going to tell you what I do know. What I do know is any man, any person, but in this particular instance, any man who can create that level of trust with a woman, period, can
Mm,
create that and does create that in those other relationships. But what I do understand is that you have them distinct, which is
mhm,
okay. Like you have it, it's a different category, but there is some version of the same thing in those relationships, and they may be distinct.
mhm.
I'm gonna keep that in so I make it look. Look, let me just tell you something. I am 57 and
Uh-huh.
I am single and no kids. And I hear you because I have many, my besties are male. Well, I have female besties too, but I do understand that. And so even though I said that to make you look good, I invite you to go back and look to see what is that kind of trust that you allow with your romantic relationships? How is it different and why is it different?
Why you do all that? God damn it.
Interview about the United States. Wait, doing over here.
Like, oh Lord have mercy.
It's Saturday morning. I know. I can't help myself. It's what I do. This it's
It's,
actually
it's
my
all
side.
good. It's
Okay.
all
So we're gonna
good.
go into the questions, take you off the hot seat. So you didn't listen to any episodes, did you?
No, apparently not. Jesus.
I promise it's not painful. So what are your favorite words? Phrase, quote, or book?
It's that.
Oh, that was your answer to the first one.
It's that. That because the narrative or the picture of those black women going through the post-war narratives of
I
World War
got
II,
you. Okay.
the actions of black soldiers in general, kind of being the front door to one of our racial reckonings in this country, if you will.
Mhm.
I spent 12 out of my 20 years in the military in Germany. So there's a whole experience of black folks in Europe touches me in a different way.
Okay. So the symbol.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I got all right. What is a significant person, moment, or event that either changed the trajectory of your life or had a significant impact on your life?
So I give you three. I started off in '94 as a student at Hampton University. As my partner Mike would say, we started living life on life's terms, left school, ended up in the military. So that's one. The second would be September 11th.
Mm,
I was on what was then Fort Hood, Texas when it happened. So that really brought the reality of what you're doing, no matter what you feel about it or how you feel about it, whatever personal feelings we have about the military and our interests abroad,
mhm.
that made it really real in a manner that I don't think I had ever really grasped before. Deployments, combat, that was a thing that I had missed by the skin of my teeth. That made it real.
Mm.
Sooner or later, that thing is coming. That bullet, that train's coming. And the longer you stayed in the military after September 11th, the harder it was to avoid. Number three will be my experience in Afghanistan and coming to grips with the idea that these deployments, this is something I can't keep doing.
Year is this?
2012, physically, emotionally, mentally, I just can't keep doing this. And we redeployed back to Joint Base Lewis McChord, which is about 30 to 45 minutes down the road here. My mind started moving. Okay, so what do I want to do after this is done? What do I want to do after I take the uniform off? Those are the three.
Your language was you ended up in the military. What had you enlist?
So I was on my own, and the recruiter hit me up, and he kept saying, "You can go to Europe. You have a roof over your head. a meal, and a paycheck. And I had hit a point of, okay, what's the worst 4 years can look like? I'll do it. That turned into 20, but
What year was that?
98, 98, yeah.
And things have been peaceful for the U.S. We had not truly been engaged in much.
Yeah, I enlisted in 98. And like you said, relative peace. We had the things with Haiti. Mogadishu was on television mid to early 90s, but I enlisted in 98, got through all the training. I want to say it was either December 12th or December 15th. I got to Germany, my first duty station. There was some paperwork complications or things that hadn't been done. So my unit wasn't ready to take me. So I ended up staying at Rhine Mine, which was open at the time. That night, Clinton decided to attack Saddam. I forget what exactly the incident was, but they struck Baghdad that night. So I get to Germany to my unit days later in December. And this is all during the period of the Balkans Wars. So this is Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro, the former
Hmm.
Yugoslavia, what is now Macedonia, and Albania, Kosovo. So this had been going on for a few years now. The first reality check was that 1st Armored Division out of Würzburg, Germany. We had sent units into Kosovo, and we had sent some of the new equipment in to do some of the work, do some of the damage to clean out the area. And I'll never forget it. We had just come in from PT. I bought a television, a big television stand and whatnot.
Hmm.
And we get back, we flip on CNN, and we're hearing that there were some Americans taken hostage. And they show this picture of the troops, and we saw the patch. And we were like, oh, big red one. They're from Würzburg. I was stationed in Darmstadt at the time. Würzburg is maybe an hour, 2 hours away. And it was just like, oh, okay, it's real. There was no more high life of being an American in Germany with a uniform and all that comes with that.
Hmm.
So that was the first reality check. And this is happening while we're prepping to go for a field exercise. This was a planned exercise, nothing to do with the burgeoning conflict in Albania and Kosovo. So we're at the field exercise and we get told, hey, your team might get pulled. Highly likely not, but your team might get pulled. Second reality check. About a week later, we're told we're a backup team. So we had to be aware of what was going on and be prepared to move if something happened. And, we're still just doing our normal stuff because we're not going, right? And I never forget it. Memorial Day weekend, I've been off with friends, doing what we do. And I get back to a note on my door, be at commander's office at 9 a.m. Get in my room, my roommate and his girlfriend are there. She is dry heaving. And I'm like, okay, this ain't good. So the next morning, I'll never forget it. Our commander says, okay, this is like May 26th, 27th. You have till June 2nd to pack up. You're ready to go. June 3rd, you're going. We're on call for like 5 days. The fifth day passed, nothing. A week passes, nothing. Another week passes and they're pulling everybody home from Albania. Like, oh, okay, we're not going. I missed it. I'm good. We good.
Right. Right.
So I get to Fort Hood on January 1st of 2001, September that year. Bang, here we are. And, you know,
Yeah. So you kind of missed it, felt like, all right. And
all
then,
right, I'm good now. And then get to Texas and bang.
what's really crazy for me is that, oh man, it was in like 2018, 2019, realizing that the students that I was teaching, because I teach seniors, that they were born after 9/11 happened. It made me think about hearing older people talk about World War II when I was coming up. And it's like, yeah, all right, yeah, I know it's bad. When you're young, that's how you feel about like, yeah, that sounds bad.
Exactly.
Right. And then living through, because I was a grown woman when 9/11 happened, I was already teaching. I remember seeing the first tower fall while I was getting dressed. I stopped in front of the TV and I was like, oh. It's like you're going, oh, but we don't really know it's an attack yet, right? It's just like, this is some crazy, this is what? Right? And then the second one happens, and it's like, oh, see, that ain't no accident. See, I'm not in the military.
Yeah,
It's fine. I don't have any degrees around any of this, but I got some common sense. 2 planes, 2 hours, that is an attack.
crazy thing about it for me, like I said, I was in Fort Hood. I had just bought a used Ford Mustang 98.
Hmm.
And the dealer said, I bought it the weekend before. Says, come back on in the morning of September 11th, drop the car off. We'll make sure everything's good, and then you can drive it off for good. Drive it there. They got a shuttle taking me back to post because we're doing training on new equipment. So it's a
Hmm.
field exercise at home station, 10-minute walk from the barracks,
Okay.
and I'm on the night shift. So I drop the call off the next morning, come back, and we're on the shuttle, and somebody's talking about a plane flew into the World Trade Center. Huh? Okay, whatever. I get back to the room, television's on, and they're replaying the second plane going to the second tower. And about 10 minutes after that, we're all called to muster because they know it's real. By
Oh,
then, they know it's
mhm.
real, and I will never forget the looks. About lunchtime, we were finally allowed to kind of move again and try and get our day together, whatever that looked like by about then. And I remember the shuttle came and got me, and I got the car, came back, and Fourth ID was still on Fort Hood at the time. It's now in Colorado, and those dudes already had their A and B bags packed. They were loading them. The wives were out there, and it
This is the same
all
day.
yeah. This is like this is really real. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that.
So, excluding your parents or guardians, who
Mhm.
was the first person to earn your respect? How or why?
Sergeant Donald Clark. So much of my teenage years and all of that stuff, I was just blurring through, and I didn't really pick up on things or understand things or really be able to grasp who was trying to look out for me or for me and everybody I was associated with. And this is weeks before we get the call about going to Albania. We get moved to his team. There's been some issues within the unit, questions about how certain members of leadership was treating black soldiers. And so I had to move to his team with one of my best friends to this day. And it was a lot of tough protection, but I can honestly say he had our back.
What did he do? How did he earn it?
He was a big presence. I had seen him with my own eyes battle through the challenges of being big presence, being the biggest voice in the room, being the go-to guy. He
What?
was 3 ranks ahead, but we're basically like 2 years or maybe a year apart in age, but he had been in a lot longer than I had and had gotten, promoted. And so he was in charge of us. And that was the first person I truly respected, not being my dad, uncle, or cousin that could protect you, chastise you, put you in place, and all of those things.
When you say big presence and then managing the battle of being someone who knows what's up, how did he carry that off?
There was only one white person on the team. My roommate Morris. There was 3 black folks and Morris. So you know what the social dynamics look like. So if we ever made a mistake or perceived to make a mistake because they didn't like him anyhow, he caught it. And he took bullets for us. He protected me. He protected one of my best friends. He protected Morris, all of us, and could do it with a disdain that I only saw in my uncles or my girl, while still being the biggest voice, the biggest. And yeah, that was the first person in my life that was not a family member that I saw like that I saw that level of respect in.
Mhm.
Then there's Sergeant Major John Graves. About 5 to 6 years later, after we went to Iraq and did everything, and I came back, I'm going to the promotion board to be B5 promotable to make E6. And you got to stand up there, answer questions, get grilled, all of that. And I only had about 2 questions. And he said, Spencer, You didn't need to answer any questions. We know the work you did. The tears and pain I had to hold back standing there
Mhm.
and not break down has always stayed with me because he was the type to keep it honest and real with you too. Told the story about how in his younger days in his military career, he was a black radio man in a white infantry unit. And so he had to be the best of the best and not show any kind of weakness. And he said one day they were out on a road march training and he got a word into him. Hey, your daughter got a little sick. She collapsed. And he says, oh, okay, she'll be fine. Is she fine? Yeah, she'll be fine. And he kept marching. Said it happened again, twice. He kept marching. He said, the third time, yeah, they got a little choked up. You could tell he was getting choked up. He said she didn't come back. And he was always able to share that reality. And this was in a pretty mixed group. This wasn't just us hanging on the corner talking. No, this was in a very large integrated group setting where he spoke about that. I've always carried that with me.
Mhm.
From that moment on, I always tried to talk to folks about, yeah, we humping and doing all of this stuff here, but you got to go home sooner or later. You're going to go home. You're going to have to deal with things sooner or later. So that was something that I've always carried with me. Yeah, that's something I've always carried.
When you were in the military, was it fairly common for the focus to be on right here where we are and then to get back and have to deal with things that had slipped?
Oh, that was my entire career.
And I and
That was,
I asked that because, it's not as in vogue today. It's we kind of lost that thing where people will say, well, thank you for your service. And I think it's in part because we don't know as many people who served. And so there's it's almost like people think they're saying that to say, thank you for being over there, but not realizing that you're not just thanking for being over there. You're thanking for what was sacrificed to be there.
yeah, yeah. They,
It's bad either. I want to be clear.
right,
I'm not saying it's horrible. And then, but there are things that get missed, even if it's just you don't get to see any of the birthday parties for 5 years.
right. When folks would run up, say thank you for your service or pay for a meal, it always kind of made me kind of squeamish because I'm not that guy. It's my job. I do what I do. I signed up, so I did it. And that's kind of far as I took it. And I think some of that too delayed me from valuing what I did.
Hmm. Hmm.
But there's a juxtaposition too. One of the things I've seen in some of the experiences I've had is okay, as long as I'm in that uniform or you figure out I got an ID card, I'm fine. You know, if I'm not in uniform, if I don't pull out my ID card, if I'm not in a military attached or adjacent facility, I'm just another you know what. No,
In a hoodie.
yeah, I'm just another you know what. So that has always been a hard juxtaposition. So I never really fully embraced or fully dove into all of that, all of the, I guess, love affair.
I appreciate you saying that. I know for sure I've interviewed at least 5 veterans, and I really think it's probably more like 12. I've heard brothers share about the same thing that they pull out their card if they're wearing the uniform. There's a way that they're treated when they walk into Starbucks and order coffee versus when they're in their regular outfit. And because you live that difference, you're aware of how you are perceived, minus the uniform, how you are perceived as a Black man in the community by certain people. But in your response to what I shared about thanking veterans for their service, I guess it kind of anchors in for me that I tell you, it's a curse word that comes to mind, but it's kind of like I probably won't leave it in, but yeah, it's kind of like bullshit. You treat me nice because I'm in a uniform, but you can't treat me like this all the time. Did I take
Mhm.
that too far?
Oh no, it's
Okay.
the honest reality of
Mhm.
world we live in.
Yeah.
I remember being stationed at the schoolhouse for 6 months in Augusta, Georgia. This was '07, '08 ish time frame. same period as the Gen 6 was happening. And, you know, we were all guys in the same MOS studying to be promoted to the next rank. We had a guy that was put on a recruiting detail in Louisiana. And he was telling us how the white soldiers that they recruited and brought in, he would have to tell them, hey, you just can't be throwing the N word around like you do around here. I know you're comfortable here, but when you get to Fort wherever, it's folks from New York there. It's folks from California there. It's folks from Richmond, Chicago, Dallas, Atlanta there. This is not
Mm.
rural Louisiana. This is not rural Mississippi. Let that fly out your mouth in basic or at unit. You're going to find out now that you're in a
Mm.
different world. And that was also the time where something that went on in Augusta or the surrounding area. And some folks had pulled us to the side and said, hey, if you get pulled over, hand over both your driver's license and your military ID.
Mhm.
I haven't stopped doing that. I know it's gotten me out of some situations. I'm fairly sure it's either kept me alive or kept me out of jail.
Yeah, you're not the first to share that. I'm another one I hear is being at a university that's in a town that may not be fully involved.
Yeah,
And then, pull out both your college ID and your driver's license so they know you're not, it's sad to say, but so they know you're not local.
right.
What insights from your career or for your formal training can you share with our listeners to help them get more out of life?
If you're going to do it, do it. Do not involve yourself in anything that you're going in half cocked or, to be bluntly honest, half assed.
Hmm.
Because you're not going to feel anything from it. It's not going to have meaning to you, and you're not going to be as respectful of it, or you're going to respect it when it's too late or when you're old. So if you're going to do something, make sure you're doing it.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. I totally get what you're saying because that stuff that you do halfway or half hearted, it loses some of the value and you miss what was available in that moment. So, apart from the Obama presidency, which pivotal historic event from your lived experiences has left the most profound impact on you and how has it changed your perspective?
Oh, it's September 11th.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. Anything you'd add from what we've shared?
That event changed so many things, not just for us here, but globally. I remember flying back to Germany after being stationed in Korea in big 2003. I was sitting next to a girl on the plane who was from the east side of Berlin. And I remember she asked me going to Germany. I said, yeah. She said, are you military? I said, yeah. And she said, it's not easy for you right now, is it? And I was like, no, no, not at all. The view of us as Americans had changed in
Mm.
Europe from the actions of that. I'd never seen a flip on perspective so quick.
I do know what you're talking about, but there are different places that could have happened. At what point are we talking with this
This is
change?
Iraq now. This is going
Okay.
into Iraq, and this is post mission accomplished. Yeah, because if you remember correctly, the Germans didn't get involved in Iraq. French
Mhm.
stayed out of it.
Mhm.
The only ones that got involved were the British.
Yeah.
Why did the Germans and the French stay out of it? They had oil deals with Saddam.
Mm.
Angela Merkel was on her way up to becoming the most prominent person or leader in Europe at the time. And she decided, we're not getting involved in this. From me and my experience, they looked at us like, why are y'all doing this?
Mhm.
It doesn't make sense. What sense does this make? And then it got to a place of, well, yeah, y'all are the Americans, so why are we asking questions? We know who you are. George W. Bush was seen as a clown. And whatever our opinions are on that, we can get into the whether it was rightly so or not, but
Yeah.
George W. Bush was seen as a clown. And I think going into Iraq changed the world forever. I think it really changed tensions in Europe also because this is, at least in my opinion, these I won't say beginnings, but the middle of large migrations from the Middle East
Mhm.
and Africa into Europe. The large populations of people from Muslim faith of folks from the Middle Eastern countries, the large migration of folks from Africa was really getting going. So the decision to go into Iraq really changed things.
It did. When I first asked the question, you said 9/11, but what you're pointing to flows from 9/11, but specifically that choice
Mhm.
to attack Iraq. Abu Ghraib, that whole thing was a mess. And then I think that was, if I'm not mistaken, when we started to be more aware of private contractors and work they were doing. And it's almost like we conducted that war in a way where we kind of made up our own rules. We colored outside the lines a little bit more than people were accustomed to or comfortable with. Yeah.
And the thing about it is, with Vietnam, it was Dan Rather on the front line. Now you've got the internet, the
Yeah.
beginnings of social media,
Yes.
24/7 news cycles, because a lot of what you were talking about are things we have been doing all along,
Good point. Good point.
but
Good
now
point.
it was very much public conversation in the public sphere, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You
Yeah.
couldn't get away from it.
You're right.
So
That's a
all of
great point.
all of the stuff that
Yeah.
that was out that was out there for everyone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What is a moment or event that highlights your experience as a Black man in the United States?
20 this is days after January 6th. Secretary Austin puts up a Facebook post, and it was really across all social media that was there at the time. I saw it on Facebook, and he's preparing for his hearings to be installed as secretary. And he speaks and he says, although I can't remember exact words, but he says, although I'm the first, I hope I'm not the last. Man, I folded like good sheets. Oh my goodness. What he was saying alone is enough. Then to think about what he's had to put up with over the last few weeks, especially with the health issues he's had, to then put the juxtaposition of 2, 3 days earlier, we watching folks run up in the Capitol building unencumbered, doing whatever, throwing feces and everything possible. Nooses out on the lawn, guillotines out. I'm still trying to figure out how they got the guillotines out there without getting stopped. And then days later to see him in a hearing being grilled by someone like a Tom Tillis from Arkansas, who I believe is an Air Force major or captain in the reserves, who should know better. Of all people, he should know better.
Because
Feels
I
like
don't remember the grilling. What was that he was saying?
you got Tom Tillis trying to get this one word answer out of him. Is the military racist? Yes or no? And you see Secretary Austin trying to give a thoughtful answer, and he keeps butting in, yes or no. So that has really stayed with me.
2 sentences. What does it signify for you about being a Black man in the United States?
It signifies the juxtaposition of all of blood, sweat, and tears, the hard work, the juice of getting there, of being the first or being the only one in the room. Okay, so you have that. And then having to deal with everything that comes with being the first, being the only one in the room.
I think I understand what you're pointing to, which is that there's the pride and the
Mhm,
joy of achievement. And while it would be great to stand in and soak in the accomplishment, the achievement, the success, that being the first or being the only,
mhm,
there's not a lot of time to just be in that. Be-
mhm,
It still brings with it scrutiny. It's like we hear so often, you have to be twice as good and you have to work twice as hard and this and that.
mhm.
So you do that, but then you're not being rewarded
Right.
with the respect. If you could spend 8 hours with any other Black man from any time, who would you choose and what would you do?
Clarence Avant, I'm in the sports management industry and in the consulting industry now. Clarence Avant was in the entertainment industry, basically as an agent, marketing, and record producer, radio station owner, all of it. Amongst giants in the industry, you can say that you don't have Jimmy Carter without him. Clearly don't have Bill Clinton.
And for my listeners who aren't familiar with him, because I'm not, what did he do?
So he became so big in the music industry and so connected that he would have political get together with folks in the political industry. And those genres were crossed. He helped Andrew Jackson in his push to become mayor.
And so was he was a kind of a connector and basically took promoting into the political arena in a sense?
Yeah.
Oh,
So there's a story of the concert where Sammy Davis Jr. sings "I Did It My Way." And this is after Sammy had given his full-throated support to Nixon. And so Sammy's pretty much a pariah, and, kind of that, I won't say Kanye, but he was up there.
mhm.
And so they do this concert in the late 70s. And so Stan Lathan is the director. That's Sanaya's father. They get the Jacksons, they get Diana Ross, and Jesse Jackson has put it all together, put this concert, him and Jesse Jackson and a few other community members, like 71, 72. So this is after the movement, the civil rights movement. You still got black children in afros standing up saying, "I'm black and I'm proud." And they put this benefit concert together. That's his entrance into sort of the political machine.
Okay, got you.
You can watch this documentary on Netflix. It's called The Black Godfather.
Okay.
So off of that, political movers and shakers that wanted black votes started to come to him. All the while, he's still the strong, strong figure in black music because him and Quincy Jones were the best of friends.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And you can see that in the documentary. So as I said, he helps Andrew Jackson's campaign. He helps support Jimmy Carter's campaign. And it gets to a place where after Jesse Jackson's speech in 88, the Democratic Party realizes, okay, we can't do this without black votes. So all of the changes that are ushered in with Ron Dellums, I believe, and some of the other folks that were put into high-ranking places within the Democratic Party after 88. So you got basically a think tank of black folks in political leadership within the Democratic Party trying to figure out ways to move the black vote.
Mhm.
One of the things was concerts and events. So
Mhm.
basically, if you look at it, you don't have Bill Clinton
Mhm.
without Clarence Avant.
All right. So that's who you choose. You've got 8 hours. What are you going to do in those 8 hours?
I am picking their brain for every piece of industry information I can get.
We haven't actually talked about what you do yet. Tell the audience a little bit about who they've been listening to in terms of what you do around sports. And I think they'll then understand both your choice and what you'd be picking his brain about.
So Adam Spencer, Spencer Group International, CEO and founder of the company. I'm a sports agent. I work in multiple sports, and I also do sports business consulting and strategizing with sports rights holders. Rights holders is more of a international term or European term for the media and content provider, ticket distributor, beverage distributor, the facility or stadium arena that you're going to hold the event in, the governing bodies, i.e. the IOC, IAAF,
Mhm.
ATP, NBA, etc., FIFA, FIBA, etc. I I work in spaces around all of those different industries and events as a consultant to strategize and properly pull off tournaments, properly strategize events, and give a DEI perspective. I partner with MEI, Major Events International, out of London as a consultant with them. I plan to be in Lausanne for their annual get together at the IOC.
Okay. And of the different productions and strategizing collaborations that you've done, what's one that you're particularly proud of?
Going to the 2018 NFL Combine was a really great experience to me. I got to meet a lot of other different agents. So for the sports fans out there, this is the Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley draft.
Mm,
So their combine experiences where they do the height, weight, medical interviews with teams, and they do their testing out on the field. So I got to work with Sports Management Worldwide as a part of their involvement within the combine, and they hosted an event as a part of the experience there at combine. So I got to be a part of that.
awesome. If the United States was a woman with whom you could speak, whether she's mother, lover, stranger, child, you name it, what would you say to her?
Are you done being impressed yet? Done being impressed.
What do you mean? Impressed with what?
I was watching something, and I think it might have been tonight's conversation, one of their podcasts. And the woman was asking this question, and she was saying how she wants a man to do all of these different things for her. And this current conversation the young folks have about
Yeah.
Cheesecake Factory and all that, it was along the lines of that
Okay.
nonsense.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You could tell she was unhappy with her dating. And the brother asked her, "Why are you still trying to be impressed? Why are you looking for a man to pay this extravagant dinner bill, driving this extravagant car, this high paying job, this, house in the hills, this summer house wherever, you're getting flued out to wherever." And he comes back to, "Why are you still trying to impress? What are you looking for? Because all you're
Mhm.
trying to do is be impressed. How is that working for
Yeah.
you?" We had Barack Obama, which should have been the most impressive person, family, story, narrative, and whatever else you want to call it about us. The man brings healthcare and you lose your mind. You go and find the most angry narratives about who is and who ain't standing up during a song to fuel you. You go and find every narrative about blue lives, respecting the country, and every other bit of anger that comes with that possible in Donald Trump. And everything was fine until it wasn't with this pandemic.
Mm.
Everything was fine. You didn't care until you were stuck at home and you had to see the world you created and a black man being lynched in broad daylight. And within that, just on the outside of it, there's a story of Breonna Taylor. There's Ahmaud Arbery. Bill Clinton balancing the book wasn't good enough for
Mm.
it. You had to go find the name you knew. George W. Bush, a name you knew. And once you realized he was just a straight puller for Dick Cheney, you went and found a black guy because you thought the world was going to end. Okay, that wasn't good enough. You had in what seems to be the nicest man in the world in Jimmy Carter, at least on paper. We don't know anything other than Jimmy Carter might be the nicest man on this earth. Him and Rosalind. We don't know him anything other than that. But somewhere in that, you found Ronald Reagan. He touched the bloodthirsty nature of your Christian nationalism, our nationalism as a whole. He touched your buttons in search of a Cold War with Russia, ending communism. He touched all your buttons in that. Those three alone are some of the most dynamic, picturesque humans we've ever put in leadership. Whether we gave them 4 years or 8 years, somehow they weren't good enough. Now let's get to Hillary. Roommates with Grant Hill's mama, former First Lady, former Secretary of State, and somehow she wasn't good enough. 53% of her own people. This wasn't us that did it.
Mhm.
53% of her own. And when I mean her own, I mean down to the T of her own. I can't trust her.
And let me just be clear. I'm not a Hillary fan, but I do prefer professional. I do prefer a professional. And I
You
know
know,
for some people that tells them that I'm stupid because I would prefer someone with political background. But I just like people who actually know what the Constitution is. Forgive me. Anyway,
yeah,
I'm done. I'm done.
you chose, in the instance of Hillary, you chose your stupid brother in law. You chose your stupid uncle, who you can't shut up at the family. You chose your ignorant husband. You chose in Donald Trump a man who has lied about his financial wherewithal because he impressed you. You keep trying to go after this thing that we try and impress the world with. How is it
Mhm.
working for
Mhm. Mhm. Based on your particular expertise and perspective, what excites you about the future of this country?
the idea that we can't avoid dealing with each other? I look at it in so many, whether it's the realm I work in sports or any other particular realm. The rabbit got guns. Maybe not all of them, maybe not enough to win, but the rabbit got guns now. Our young people are so filled with information. We all are, really. I
Yeah.
don't think we understand how much information we all take in on a daily basis, how much that information connects us. And I say this all the time, the internet and social media has brought us so closely together, but we're just farther enough away to not catch a right cross.
Wait, say that again.
Just far enough away to not catch a right cross.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I guess I'm excited because we can't avoid it anymore.
Mm.
That sounds sad. Maybe that's not the most uplifting thought process, but the fact is we can't avoid it anymore.
I
We
actually
can't,
love
we cannot avoid, especially for American purposes, who we are and what we are anymore.
I was in a conversation with a couple of friends over dinner. This is a few days ago, and different perspectives. And we went political, and I'm really excited about the friends that I have because we're able to disagree, be cordial, like we used to do.
When we had those conversations, we had to look each other in the eye.
Yeah.
Now I can get my little Twitter fingers together, say whatever I want to, run to my end of the conversation. You say whatever you want to, run to your end of the conversation. And like I said, we're far enough away to not get punched.
Yes. Although I do find that there are people now who, even when they're in person, are willing to be much more combative than now. But I'm going to add this. That's not from my personal experience. And so we were having this conversation and coming from our different perspectives. The one thing we could agree on is that whoever gets elected in these next 4 years, it's going to be a reckoning. I mean, if I'm honest, really, we didn't all agree on this, but my personal take is it probably will be a Trump. And there are people who don't want to hear that. But when I look at what I'm seeing when I interact with young people and just the marketing, the
Mhm,
political marketing from one to the other, it,
mhm.
it, they're outdoing Democratic marketing. In either case, to what you were sharing, I think that sometimes a reckoning is what's needed. Sometimes, when you need to clean the rug, you gotta shake it out. Wait, you shake it out. You get the vacuum, but it can be a little nasty when you're in the midst of cleaning something, when you're in the midst of moving into a new iteration of something. And earlier in the conversation, you mentioned that, and I believe it's so right. So you said that particular racial reckoning. It's like we're going to have not only a racial reckoning, but an economic reckoning. There's so many potential reckonings that are coming up that there is an opportunity for in the upcoming 4 years. And again, true, that will be regardless of who's chosen, because if Trump is chosen, then It's going to be that kind of reckoning. And if Biden is reelected, there's still going to be a reckoning. It's just going to look a little different. But either way, there's going to be a reckoning.
And I think if we look historically, however that reckoning comes, however that looks like, question is, how long are the white children and the white adjacent children going to stay in the reckoning? Or are they going to run home? George Floyd.
Yeah.
Now look at the
Yeah. Getting cut everywhere. BlackRock divesting.
Yep. Barack Obama. Greatest thing since sliced bread. Give you health care, now it's thanks, Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Clinton. Now there's narrative that we can give about old Slick Willie. The man balanced the books and kept a pretty sane and safe country for 8 years. No, wasn't good enough. We worried about him jumping off with Monica Lewinsky. That became the concern. That became the moral concern. Jimmy Carter. Those same white children that were free love, disco and dancing the night away in the 70s, hippies in the 60s, marching and all of that stuff, came home when it was time for Ronald Reagan. I worry that we'll never get on the other side of the reckoning because the white children and the white adjacent children will always have a door out. That's what Donald Trump is now. He's a door out.
Yeah. This is where I'm going to plug a movie I get nothing for plugging at all. But if you haven't seen Ava DuVernay's movie Origin, it's a film about a book, the book on caste called Caste. But what I loved and why I recommend the movie is in the U.S., race is our choice of distinguishing for our particular caste system.
Mhm.
And what made me share her movie and encourage people to see the movie if you haven't or read the book is because when you said, will there ever really be a true reckoning? And I don't know. And the movie popped into my head because dismantling a caste system, it takes more than I think we're aware of, that it's deeper than we're aware of. And so it may be a forever dance. I would like to think not. I would love to think not. But it is certainly a dance that even in the reckoning, if it happens that I don't see it being the end of the music. But we might do songs.
Yeah, and I worry because, and maybe I'm crazy, but as Black people, let's say the reckoning is there and it's going to happen.
Mhm.
There's a place that I don't know if we have involvement in because your white mother, her sisters and aunts that voted Republican for years, that kept Mitch McConnell and folks like that in office forever. Where's that my conversation? Love affair with the flag and all that other stuff. You know, the propping up of Moms for Liberty, the Daughters of the Confederacy. As a Black person, where am I in that conversation outside of this is why I'm having a reparations argument?
Mhm.
That's our neighbors thing, as pastors think, our fair-skinned neighbors. That's their cross to bear. And I don't know if we have a part in it. Or am I crazy?
Well, I don't know either. But what I do know is we're all on the same ship. And if they're talking about whales, starboard, and people over here talking about crabs and lobsters, it we can all have our separate conversations. And we can be interested in different things for dinner and different sights to see off the side of the ship. But we all on that same ship. And we don't have to be in the same conversations. There will always be conversations that we're not all in on. But what are the common conversations? To what degree can we align on common conversations to make sure we hit the port, that one, we choose a port.
That's facts.
Right. And that would be a start, like choose a port. And then once chosen, there will need to be some agreement. But that ship is in the middle of the ocean and it could just stay there. But if you want to get somewhere, it's going to be some conversation. There's got to be some shared conversations at some point. My thoughts.
So
Go
we
ahead.
got to be out in the middle of the ocean before.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, yeah, seriously. Because there's no reason otherwise. I know that sounds horrible, but yeah, I'm just, and I would love to be wrong, but I mean, I think we could have the shared conversation back on land, but what happens is, like you said, these are separate conversations, and that's what I mean about this. It's an undulating history. Yeah. Okay. So here's the last question, and it's actually not my question. New this season, new going forward. Any guess? Opportunity to ask me a question just because, and you don't have to, so it is optional. But if you have a question, ask away. Anything not related to the podcast. The reason for that is I talk about the podcast all the time.
So I rewatched Roland Martin again last night, their post State of the Union discussion. And the common theme, because I don't know if they got deeper into the political weeds or more into the social. I feel like it was more the social weeds than
Yes.
the political
Yes.
policy.
Yeah, they were pulling for heartstrings.
Mhm. I keep seeing it myself, but the common theme seems to be this juxtaposition of basically my parents' generation, the boomers. We skip over the whole Obama years. What's that? The silent generation that was
Mm.
Obama's generation. Skip them over.
Gen X.
Get to
Because
Gen X.
that's me. Gen X. Yeah.
That's me too. Get to Gen X. And there's a chasm. Get to millennials. Between Gen X, there's a chasm. Go even further down. Gen
Gen
Z,
Z. Ones I'm teaching.
there's a chasm.
Yep.
There's Generation Alpha coming along.
Coming along.
What gets us all on the same page? Because I could see that boomer generation in what happened for Joe Biden in South Carolina. Everybody was Bernie this, Bernie that, progressive, excuse my language, but that shit stopped quicker than a car wreck
Right.
soon as it got to South Carolina. And let's just tell the truth. Who did that? Them old church ladies.
Mm.
I look at my generation and I feel like we missed out with Hillary.
Okay.
And then I look at the younger generations, whether it's the millennials, Y, Alpha, who I'm jealous of because they have such an understanding of their emotions and feelings, needs and wants from such a young age. And they find the space of purity to express it. But I worry they're going too far into the purity. Because as my
Wait, so
grandfather
what's
was
your
like,
question?
what is the same page? Or how do we get all on the same page as Black folks?
Okay, see, bro,
What is the
look.
middle?
Ask me a question about something I know about.
What is the
Okay,
middle?
but no, but I'm gonna go there with you. I'm gonna go there with you. So, as a educator who experienced education as Gen X, who educated millennials, also AKA Gen Y,
Mhm.
is with Gen Z. What gets us on the same page? It really goes back to what I said about the ship. We've got to pick someplace. And in all honesty, I'm gonna tell you right now, for those of you listening to the podcast, I went all bald and I'm rubbing my head right now because I don't know. I do want to. I'll get there just by saying this because you mentioned how Gen Z has access to their heart and their emotions and their thoughts, and they do. Humbly acknowledging that I'm about to oversimplify and insult. The problem I experience with Gen Z is they've got access to so much information. You mentioned how we have access to a breadth of information now, and we do. We get so much information all day. I Google everything.
Mhm.
Oh, who is that? Let me Google that. Oh, what was that name? Oh, what's that? What illness is that? Oh, and I'm rabbit holes all day, as do Gen Z, sort of. But because they have access to so much information, it's a surface level. It's not rooted. It's not rooted in experience because they're still young. It's not rooted in a respect for the process of information. That if someone's going to say this is going to cure you, what research did they do? Did they do clinical studies? What is it based on? Or is it three people that took it and they're influencers and they're telling you this is going to help you? And so because they say that and their filters make them look great, then that's what does it. And so I think we're going to have to, this is going to seem like I'm kind of going around here, but I think it's going to depend on our species getting a new relationship to AI. And again, I know that sounds like way over here, but here's why I say that. We, including Gen X and millennials, are relying on information without a valuing of what that information is built on, where it's coming from, what its foundation is. We can't agree on science anymore. We can't agree on facts anymore. And I think when we get to a place where we are pretty much all in agreement, and this may be when Gen Z hits its late 20s, perhaps when Gen Z hits its late 20s and has more experience under its belt and is interested in questioning the foundation of what they know, we may then be able to have conversations about what port do we want. That's my answer.
What port do we?
Adam, I acknowledge you for being open and committed because that's what I hear about you. You are committed to a future that works. You're interested in it. You're curious about it. When we first started, and you talked about the women who integrated the Army in World War II. And what I heard in that was your awareness of how that created a new future where the people that you served with could contribute to you.
Mm.
The way that Clarence Avon shaped where we are now, but in your conversation, it's constantly about where are we headed? Like we made these choices about who we've elected as our leaders, and then where does that go from now? And at the base of all of those conversations is a commitment to a future that works for everybody. And so I just acknowledge you for having that commitment, and I wish you the greatest success.
Well, this was an absolute pleasure for me. Thank you for putting up with me. As you can probably tell, I think broad. I get in trouble. I'm in school. I'm still in school at Hampton right now. And I get in trouble with papers where I can get a thesis statement. And instead of shrinking down, old Adam thinks broad.
It's all good.
But
Look, here's the thing. And that way I'm by. And that way I'm by. Because I can go, rah, we can talk all over the place, but I also can enjoy a very narrow and focused conversation. I love them all. I guess pretty much I love a good conversation. And that's what this has been. So thank you for sharing your time with me.
it was a pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and click the bell so that you're notified when new episodes arrive.